So I mounted my dust collection onto the wall, but you already knew that. I want to tell you why I did certain things the way I did and show you how I did it. We're going to go over the dust collector, then the Cyclone, and at the end, how I incorporated Walnut into this simple task. But first, I have a problem to solve. How was I going to get this all to fit? See, the corners in my shop aren't exactly workshop friendly. We have one where the electrical panel is, and one way back in the corner, far from everything. The other has a gas-powered heater, which I don't think is the best place to be collecting dust. And the last corner is the entrance. We're going to go over planning your duct layout in the next episode, but here's a quick tip. You want to have your dust-heavy tools and your tools in general as close to the dust collector as possible. Now, out of my 4 corners, technically this one is the best, but there is a big problem, the distance from my tools. So this made me end up settling on the entrance, but there's a problem other than the door itself. There are 3 more obstacles in the way. We have this platform, my drill press, and the window. This can quickly turn into an analysis paralysis situation, and guess what? It did for me. It actually took me 4 days. I was getting up at like 3 a.m. every single day because I just wake up from a dream about my dust collector and my shop just completely turned into a disaster. I kept going back and forth on different ideas and worrying if there was something I was missing because look, I don't want to have to lift that heavy ass motor 10 feet in the air more than once. Anyways, the way I was able to break out of this was by creating a sketch. I was able to create mini scale size pieces and play around with the layout and see what worked and what didn't. And thankfully, I did. Let me show you why, and then we'll go into how I actually mounted this thing on the wall. So this here is a little design I made of the wall where we're mounting everything. So it's basically each square is 1 inch. So it started with just this one corner piece, and then I added this one, and then I added this one. And if you guys have realized, the entire shop may look slightly different because I reorganized everything. All the tools are in different places now, I think, except for the planer. I had to move my welder over here because I needed more space along the window wall. The welder used to be just at the end of this table here. And the reason I needed to move the welder was because I needed more space here to fit everything up against this wall. We have made some progress. A lot of what happened I don't have on camera. I needed my father's help for a lot of it, and it was just a lot of trying to figure stuff out. If you see behind me here, that is definitely the biggest thing that's gone on in these last couple of days. There was a little bit of delay because I was trying to come up with a solution to support the motor. Honestly, I think it's gonna be fine. Like, we put in some pretty long, I think 4-inch lag bolts, and it is bolted into one of the studs, and on the other side, it's just into the plywood, but that plywood is also on studs. I mean, there's like no play with that thing. It is on there. There are these little bolts here that would originally mount onto those like vertical poles that would hold it up. So I bought these brackets and I had to drill an extra hole. That way it can accept both of the bolts. And then we use these, I think 12-inch L brackets to mount it. And it may look like pretty good on there right now, but there's a catch. So the only reason why this dust collector is not shaking like crazy is because we have this sneaky little lag bolt here pretty much holding it from wobbling because it was leaning forward pretty intensely. I just don't think these brackets were strong enough, but I do have a solution to that problem that doesn't require me buying different brackets because these are definitely not returnable anymore. Obviously the mess is pretty intense and you may be thinking, okay, well, the first thing we're gonna do is clean up and make it look all pretty. Absolutely not. We're just gonna push everything to the side because we are trying to get this dust collection system set up. Right now, my main goal is to get the Cyclone separator mounted up there. I also bought some spiral pipe, as you can see. Frickin' 10-foot pipe. One cost $20, but this little 90-degree elbow cost $25. All right, enough yapping. If you guys noticed, the Cyclone and the motor were attached in my drawing, and there is a reason why. As I mentioned in episode 1, the Cyclone restricts airflow more, or airflow more. Restricts airflow more. And adding additional resistance between the motor and the Cyclone would just make that worse. If you look at 2-stage dust collectors, you'll notice that the motors are typically found right on top of the Cyclone. Now that we're mounting our system on the wall, it allows us to remove all that resistance we would have had. In my case, the top of my Cyclone has a 5-inch outside diameter inlet, but so does my motor. So we can easily connect these two using a small piece of duct, but this does mean we have to have these two inlets perfectly in line with each other, which is easier said than done. You don't have to be the one to tell me that this is probably a bad idea, but I gotta try to figure out where this is actually gonna sit up here, so. Ow. No, it's not long enough. This isn't exactly going as planned. What the heck just popped off? Oh yeah. Now we're getting somewhere. I think one more bungee should do it for us. Boom. Check that out. That's pretty good. Sketchy, but pretty good. What do you think? You think that's how I should just leave it? Pretty good. Well, we have it lined up. Kinda. We now need to properly support this thing. I went back and forth with a bunch of different ideas, and it was especially hard considering there aren't any mounting holes on the Cyclone like there were for the motor and the dust collector. So I ended up choosing to make a little platform that has a hole cut into it, and that will allow the cone to kind of just sit into it. This is only a temporary solution, as I'll show you my unique, more custom way at the end of the video. So the reason why I wanted to get this up was because now that I know where it's gonna actually sit, I can hold my little piece up and see where she fits. So we've got a bit of a temporary solution going on right now. The plywood is being held up by these two 2x4s that are just resting on my workbench and my floor. I screwed in a little bracket at the back here just so that it doesn't, Now with the Cyclone positioned, I can finally address where the dust is supposed to go. Originally, the drum connects directly under the Cyclone, and in my case, that connection point is 6 feet off the ground. Sure, I could mount it here, but removing it for emptying would be pretty difficult and would completely block any clearance I have from my drill press. So we need to extend this down to the floor, but there's another issue. Even though I made some space for this to be mounted on the wall, I was about 10 inches off from being able to get enough space for that dustbin to sit directly under the Cyclone. In fact, it not only doesn't sit under the Cyclone horizontally, but there's also a 14-inch difference off of the wall too. The way I solved this was with some custom 3D printed adapters. But of course, to make matters worse, the hole size on the bottom of the Cyclone isn't a standard duct size, meaning not only do I need to make the adapter angle to the left and away from the wall, but I also need it to be reduced by 1/2 inch to fit the inside and the outside of my 5-inch ducts. You can't see it, but I did run just like a test pipe just to see how things are gonna lay out. I created this very wonky adapter set, so not only does it expand or reduce, but it also angles. I haven't tested these yet, so I'm a little nervous. And the way that I found the angle, I just took like a straight edge, I stuck it in the barrel on the right side of the hole, and then also on the right side of the Cyclone, and then used a electronic protractor angle finder to figure out what the angle was from the top of the bin. So hopefully that is accurate. Let's see if this will work. You may be wondering why I'm not just using some flex hose for this task, and sure, it would make it easier considering, the adapters wouldn't need to be angled, but rather just reduced. But there are actually 2 reasons on why I didn't go that route. Let me explain. Reason number 1 is when you're choosing ducting, flex hose can be more versatile because, well, it's flexibility, but it comes with one big issue. Due to its rigidness on the inside, it can add 50% to over 400% more friction loss, depending on the installation. That doesn't mean that you shouldn't use flex hose in your system, but we'll go into more detail on this in the next episode. You may be wondering, why does it matter that we're adding more friction to the system when it's technically after the suction point of the dust collection? Well, good question, valued viewer. The collection drum, also called the drop zone, is designed to operate under negative pressure. This draws the dust downwards rather than towards the blower motor. Technically, adding more static pressure would increase the negative pressure, but at the cost of airflow, which is what we don't want. See, the drop zone only needs to be more negative than the ambient air, and that's similar to the Cyclone itself. So increasing the negative pressure doesn't make it better, But actually that could make it worse in some cases, which we'll get into shortly. But for reason number 2 on why I'm avoiding using flex hose is because of ledges. You're gonna see this a lot in the next episode when we set up our ducting, but let me explain. When you're inserting ducting into the system, you want to avoid as much friction as possible. You might have noticed earlier I said, but I also need it to be reduced by 1/2 inch to fit the inside and the outside of my 5-inch ducts. If I were to slide my duct inside the adapter on the Cyclone side, it would introduce a ledge that the dust could get stuck on. So by making 2 separate adapters, one which allows the duct to slide over top of the adapter on the Cyclone side, and into the adapter on the collection drum side, I reduce the ledges, which in turn reduces the resistance. Now you could technically make an adapter that would allow a flex hose to fit inside of, but that wouldn't reduce the increased friction throughout the hose itself, and it also ends up being harder than I thought, as you'll soon see. Do that first. Perfecto. So that's on. Now let's look down below. I mean, I think that's good. I mean, the angle isn't horrible, but it's also not great. Needed to do a different angle at the top, which I didn't check. I kind of want to know like where the pipe is without the, I'll just slip this out. So I do have the ability to go down slightly and angle it like that. It'd be like there. And then, I have the pipe all buttoned up here. I have not attached it at the top yet. What I want to find out is, can I remove the barrel to empty without needing to move the pipe? Because obviously if I tape the joint up there, the pipe ain't going nowhere. If I can't get the barrel out, trouble. Whoa. Okay, plan don't work. What my new plan is, I'm going to lift the bucket off the ground by say 3/4 of an inch with some plywood. And then that way, when I need to empty the bin, all I have to do is slide the plywood out, unlatch the bin, it will come down, and then yay. So it broke, because I'm an idiot. I was trying to get the lid on. The frickin' Cyclone was twisting, and I have this 10-foot duct line that's being held up by a 2x4, and it kept almost falling over. So instead of taking this out, resting it on the floor, so that I can go and fix that, I decided to go fix it while letting it hang here. And of course it fell out once I adjusted the Cyclone and snapped. So that is absolutely lovely. There goes frickin' 7 hours of printing. Oh my god, that is so annoying. Alright, so this next clip is technically from the future, and it will make more sense in a few episodes, but I thought it was better to include it in this episode. Now I know I also have been teasing you guys with talking about removing a magnet from 3D printed after it's been glued in. I needed to be able to easily remove that dustbin without like breaking the 3D prints or bending the pipe that is connected. This was my first attempt that failed. Threads inside. Anyways, I spent like 45 minutes trying to get this on and it didn't work. So this is garbage. Magnets fit in these little holes, and then I have a receiving end. They connect. Before we go over to the final product, I ended up just saying screw it. I'm gonna run out of filament if I keep doing this, and I'm also running out of time. I've been 3D printing non-stop every single day. So I just bit the bullet on the new design. It just goes inside. Like the flex hose goes over top of this. But let's go see the final design. Welcome over here to the dark corner where the lighting is gonna probably suck, and I'm sorry for that. I'm trying to do my best. The entrance of my garage is very dark, so bear with me. So here is what it looks like. This guy broke because I dropped it, and I actually still have it. I tried just 𝙑𝙬𝘿𝙀 gluing it temporarily. I don't know why I wasted the glue because it wasn't gonna work. Like I could just, there she goes. So I printed a new one, but I changed the design slightly. So these are 3 separate pieces. This connecting ring here with all the magnets, that is a separate piece which I 𝙑𝙬𝘿 glued and then taped. The reason I did that and I didn't just print it as one full piece is because I wanted this side to be on the print bed nice and smooth, and I wanted this side down here, this ring, to be on the print bed nice and smooth, because these are points where there could be leakage. Also, I'm gonna try to bump the light up a little bit for you guys. Can you see a little better? Let's just zoom in. This is where I made a mistake and accidentally put one of them in the wrong way. It was a pain in the butt to pull it out, like really big pain in the butt. I'll bring you guys in for a close, shaky look. So you see that like hole right there? Yeah, so that was me needing to dig something in to be able to pop it out. And there was a point where I thought it was not going to work. And I'm a little worried about if this is going to give me issues with like leakage. Here's the print that goes on the flex hose with the slight chamfer on this side. So it's gonna go inside the flex hose. You can see how I had a lot of spill out in some areas. That's why I had so much glue on my fingers. The way that this is gonna work is this stays as it is. This will be connected to a flex hose, which is gonna go a very short distance because I don't wanna have too much flex hose, but just enough to a solid pipe that connects to the Cyclone so that I can easily take this off, move the bin out, and then this can just kind of hang there until I put it back in. It's pretty good. Like, watch this. Like, I can lift the whole lid from the magnets. Like, it is strong. And then to be able to easily get it off, I could just kind of like use these little, probably want to use 2 hands, I'm realizing. Like there is a slight seam. Maybe I'm just being picky. I don't know. You guys can tell me what you think. This magnet right here is the one that's damaged, right? So you can see over here, the seam is pretty closed and it gets slightly open right there. Right over here, that seam is like so closed. So anyways, if I have to, I'll just reprint this bottom piece. It's easy. Oh, frick, I CA glued it. Oh my god. I don't know. I'll figure that out. So as you can see, I got this all set up. Flex hose going from this adapter, and then I connected that magnetic latch thing, and it works pretty good actually. So now if I take this, I could just slide the bin out, and it fits on there good. Look at that was a little anticlimactic, but it does snap on good. It fits good. I don't know if there will be a leak in it. I hope not.
Thanks.
I want to address something you may be wondering. You'll notice that this hose is missing from my current setup. You may also be wondering why this hose even exists. Earlier, I mentioned that increasing the negative pressure in your collection drum could actually be worse. The reason is that if there's too much negative pressure inside of the collection drum, 2 things could happen. First, if the drum itself isn't sturdy, it could like actually collapse. This typically will happen with thin plastic or metal collection bins, and to be honest, I thought this collection bin wouldn't be able to handle the negative pressure, considering it's not exactly super thick.
Huh?
Maybe it's because of the decreased pressure from the extension that I put on, but I'm not very interested in testing to find out. Either way, the second reason is when you're using a bag inside of that collection drum to make emptying the bin easier, the negative pressure can actually cause the bag to be sucked up towards the blower motor, which is called reverse vacuum. The hose that's missing from my system is what stops that from happening. By allowing some of the airflow that goes towards the motor to go down through this hose and then at a suction point at the bottom of the drum, it stops the bag from being sucked upwards. And then adding this metal ring at the bottom of the drum is actually a barrier to stop the bag being sucked towards the reverse vacuum hose. Okay, with all of that said, obviously there's no reason not to use it, right? Well, because it does need to steal some of the airflow, that does reduce the overall CFM, but putting that aside, I also had no choice because I couldn't use it. Let me show you why. You see that little nipple right there? Now, my plan is to most likely not use bags down there and just dump the barrel. In the case I do use bags, I'll have to kind of figure it out. The frickin' Cyclone's much further than it used to be, so that hose won't work anyways. So I was just going to plug up the holes, so I 3D printed myself a couple caps, and I'm gonna put these guys on the top there, as well as the nipple that comes off the barrel at the bottom. The reason why I'm doing this now is because that nipple is so tight to the wall once I actually angle it the way I want to angle the Cyclone that I'm a little concerned this won't even fit. So let's hope, because if not, that's gonna be sad. It fit. Now I promised I'd show you how I incorporated Walnut into this project. But quickly before I show you, if you enjoyed this episode or you learned something, make sure to leave a like. Next episode, we're going to be going over installing your ductwork, so make sure to subscribe or click the video on screen now. All right, let me show you the platform I created.
Turn up till the lights turn on.